Well, last question before I let you go. Independent media analysis website Media Bias/Fact Check rates your organization, Foundation for Freedom Online, as right biased and questionable due to promotion of conspiracy theories, failed fact checks, and lack of transparency on funding. Are you familiar with the site?
Is this like, I mean, this is like dime a dozen. There's 10,000 fact checker. They're all the same. It's all the same people. And I mean, if you're asking me what I think about it, like this zero is the amount of fucks that I give about what any fucking fact checker says about my shit. I put all my receipts on screen. I meticulously document everything. My work has been entered into Supreme Court briefs. It's been entered into the Congressional record half a dozen times in Congressional hearings. I think what I do is top-notch, world-class, and frankly, I don't consider it to be a right-wing bias, even though I know that it manifests as such. I would be happy working for a Democrat president who was consistent about these things. If Bobby Kennedy, for example, ran as a Democrat in a future election, or Tulsi Gabbard did, I could very easily see myself serving under those. I don't have any animosity on those partisan grounds, and I frequently talk about how the blob oppresses left-wing outlets or movements. I talked about how the gray zone is blacklisted by Wikipedia, and how the Atlantic Council was going after the gray zone in their there's very little that I would necessarily. We may not agree on many things, but we agree on. To me, the core part is the process. I don't mind having someone I like lose an election as long as I feel like there's a fair process and I have a chance to come back stronger and change my tactics, and maybe I can win next time. But when there's this total hopelessness, like, wait, they can just squash me like a bug, and if I even try, I am getting my hopes up so that I'll just get banned after 10 years. I mean, you lose a marriage that way. Your kids see you as a loser. You go in to try to create a media channel on YouTube or a big, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, social media thing, and then one day the rug just gets pulled onto you because the very thing that you were trying to promote change in, these faceless blob figures in some email correspondence that you'll never get access to because the FOIA, you can't FOIA it because they're holding the records off-site at an NGO who has zero records retention policy under law because they've structured this in this whole society way so that they can basically censor you without you even being able to have any accountability. Like that to me is the existential threat. What happens seasonally with politics, things come and go. But I stand by everything that I do in my work.
Well, they mentioned the lack of transparency on funding. Who actually funds your organization, Foundation for Freedom Online?
Well, we have a very, very small number of just individual donors who believe in the work that we do, and we operate as a project. This is essentially like any number of standard NGO projects that have a fiscal sponsorship relationship through a 501c3 sponsor.
And before I let you go, why haven't you rejoined the Trump organization now that he's reelected?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done from my perspective as an investigative journalist. And to me, what's important is to publish findings, go through the source documents that are long and take a lot of peripheral vision to understand how networks and things like that move together. And I consider that, or at least I've considered it to date, to be more important for public policy than formulating public policy. If you don't know what's happening at USAID, how do you make a USAID policy on the basis of it? If you don't know what you inherited at the State Department or the Department of War or with these NGO relationships, how do you know how to leverage them as part of the National Security Council? And so it may be the case that I end up joining this admin or a future admin. I have no aversion to it, but I just follow my North Star, which is just effectively my day-to-day work.
Well, that's what it is. Mike Benz, appreciate you coming in. A lot of interesting perspectives. I don't agree with every single thing you're saying, but I think that's the point of having conversations like this, where you could state things and people could push back and there could be some level of discourse, but ultimately people could decide for themselves what they truly believe. I think there's facts on both sides. I think what you're doing actually is important because I don't think anyone wants censorship, an over amount of censorship. When you go to places like China, you can't say anything about the government.
Yeah.
You can't say, I hate the government, I wish the president something bad will happen to him. You'll get thrown in jail.
Yeah.
So right away. People like to think that the way it works in America applies everywhere. Go to Dubai and say something about the king of Dubai and see what happens to you. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Famously, there's that big in Saudi Arabia, they had that big comedy festival, and Dave Chappelle, went on the stage and said, "I feel I could be a lot more free with what I say here." Oh, really?
Right.
Make a joke about 9/11.
Yes,
make a joke about the journalists who got chopped up. See what happens on your way home.
Right.
So, I think what you're doing is very important, and I think censorship is ultimately a bad thing. I think free speech is a great thing. I'm here because of free speech, and continue to do your work.
Well, likewise, I appreciate your perspective. I think what you're doing is super cool. I don't want the Trump administration to have the power to take you out because you disagree with them. I think that's messed up. And disagreements, it's like family. They come and go. At the end of the day, though, there are certain things you don't do to family, and we're all in this together at a human level. And appreciate you having me on. Really enjoyed it.
That's what it is. Until next time. Peace.
Peace.